Don't use that part anymore. This regulation is set to come into effect in 2 weeks. Daniel, how can you say something like that about stablecoins? There are definitely requirements that make you think this video won't be very contemplative, even though we're just before Christmas. I can promise you that much. I read through the MiCA regulation in detail, which, by the way, will come into effect in about 2 weeks on January 1st, 2025. And at this point, you have to ask yourself, does anyone up there even have a plan? So it's unbelievable you're probably shaking your head just like I am. I have come to the conclusion that you shouldn't use parts like that anymore. Huh? Why? Yeah, I would stick with it. Also, to lift the mood a bit, I have some hot tips about Ripple for you and how to get the most out of the stablecoin launch. Also, here's an even hotter coin tip, which, by the way, isn't sponsored in any way. I'm invested in it myself, and right now is a good time to get in. Then there's the advent calendar drawing and a new door that will be opened. Man, we have a lot to do. So peace out, see you after the intro. Let's clarify the first question. What is MiCA anyway? So basically, the basic idea behind it is quite honorable, but why Europe, which isn't exactly leading in crypto compared to the rest of the world, is pushing so hard for this, we'll just leave that hanging for now. It's definitely true that the crypto space has grown tremendously, especially over the last few years, and now during the bull run, it's growing even more. And because of that, we definitely need some kind of regulation in there. Yeah, all the DeFi enthusiasts are going to scream, Daniel, how can you say that? We don't want to hear that. We want DeFi and so on. Yeah, but just think about how much scam is out there. So there are more than enough black sheep out there in 2021, and you definitely have to be careful about that. Yeah, I'm going to leave the topic of money laundering prevention and the risk of terrorist financing aside for now. It's like a running gag with all the laws that are being passed. However, all in all, you can say, and you can see that here. So, by the way, you can also take your time to read the article. I won't go into every detail right now. However, you can clearly see that at its core, this isn't really aimed at the investor, but mainly at, for example, crypto projects. So crypto service providers in general, and especially exchanges. So what you see here are mainly trading platforms, custody of cryptocurrencies, and so on. If the authorities don't know how this is supposed to be implemented or don't even know how to open a wallet, it's like highlighting police and regulatory ignorance. If that's true in politics, you see why this law confuses. There are basic criteria, not new. If you want to open an account on a centralized exchange, then you usually have to go through KYC, often from a threshold amount. If that's even remotely the case in politics, then you can understand why this law is a bit confusing. But okay, there are certain basic criteria which shouldn't be anything new. If you want to open an account on a centralized exchange, then you usually have to go through KYC, at least often starting from a certain threshold amount, like 1,000 for example. Amounts you want to withdraw, I think that's totally fine, because of course you want to prevent money laundering, etc. Yeah, it helps a bit and it definitely creates more transparency when you go through the exchanges. Well, I don't even think that's bad, but there are definitely parameters here that make me wonder who came up with this. And I might have something for you. Since Sunday, there's not only the official Uptrend community group, but also Uptrend Trading. And what you can see here is, for example, this morning I posted a forecast for XRP, what's relevant and so on. Bonuses are being shared that I negotiate with projects, exchanges, etc. I posted a forecast for XRP, what's relevant and so on. Bonuses are being shared that I negotiate with projects, exchanges, etc. Opportunities for passive income, which also includes my own trading results and just news, and that's all condensed. No one can write in there, just read along, etc. So if you're interested, check out the description, there's the link for it. On the BaFin website, I found some more information, whether it's about approval requirements or a white paper that needs to be available. I always say, yeah, okay, folks, I mean, I preach that there are super serious YouTubers who keep saying, do your own research, think about it before you invest, read a white paper, pitch deck, etc. What kind of information is included there? Well, of course, you can spoon-feed the citizens everything, which in Germany seems to take away all independent thinking from the citizens anyway, just my personal opinion. But if you look at this again, these are the criteria. Yeah, it's pretty clear to me. Some requirements are puzzling. Before discussing stablecoins, let's clarify overlooked parameters in the law. This is concerning as the regulation takes effect in 2 weeks with little information. Centralized exchanges have third-party managed wallets, usually with KYC. But before we get into the topic of stablecoins, maybe we should clarify a few parameters that apparently no one has on their radar in this law, or they are on the radar but haven't been publicly communicated yet. That's what I personally find so objectionable, because now scattered information is coming out, and this regulation is supposed to come into effect in 2 weeks. And there's a serious lack of information because look, you have centralized exchanges, so you have hosted wallets, which means they are managed by third parties and KYC is usually involved. Everything looks good. But now there are also unhosted wallets, like for example, you have a MetaMask account or TronLink or Exodus and whatever else they're called. Well, now the big question is this even relevant? Like where, for example, MetaMask is involved because maybe they'll have to go through KYC in the future, who knows, or hardware wallets. We'll get to that in a bit. I already mentioned that it's probably best not to use that part anymore. Why I'm currently ranting about Ledger, I'll explain in a moment. Maybe it's unfounded, but it's such a big deal. Because if you look further down, you have these unhosted wallets. There have already been discussions about this, and I'll touch on that later, that once you hit a certain threshold, you basically have to go through a KYC process. But now, you also don't know exactly where this threshold is. By the way, there's a new authority, so if you think it all ends with MiCA, that's just the first warning, if you will. And that raises the big question, how is this going to work moving forward? Because you have an unhosted wallet, and now you want to cooperate with a hosted wallet in some way. Do you then have to provide KYC for this unhosted wallet, showing where all the funds are coming from? But there's also a difference here between sending it to you as a friend or paying a service provider, because basically everything that happens in the private sector is supposed to remain untouched for now, at least according to the information we've gathered. And this whole thing is based solely on BC, so you can already tell questions upon questions, and it goes straight on from here. Yeah, hold on. So now we also have NFTs involved, and if you just read through this report, sorry, you'll be scratching your head at some point. So that's written in a completely stretchable way, because an NFT, the T already has the word token in it. Of course, it's a token in the end, so a non-fungible token, that's clear, but it's a token, and therefore it usually counts as a security token. But here, there are also distinctions. If it's non-fungible, meaning it's not interchangeable or replaceable, then that whole thing shouldn't be affected. All right. But now the question is, as it nicely states here, what is meant by a collection is a large number of NFTs that belong to an overall mission. And that's where the problem starts again, because at what size are we talking about a large number? A collection. And here we come to another example where Paul Berg also wrote a very nice article on X. I'm very grateful to the EU for protecting me from earning a return on my USDC holdings at Coinbase, because indeed, you have to ask yourself, why are there probably regulatory requirements? Coinbase has now removed the staking options for USDC. And that's just completely ridiculous, because if you look at it, you have a stable coin and think, well, okay, before I just let it sit there, I'll stake it and earn some returns on it. Yeah, dream on. That's definitely not going to happen in the EU anymore. The other bad news that came recently, I also reported on it. Yes, Tether, i.e. USDT, will no longer be supported by Coinbase from December. Yes, because, of course, we also have this MiCA compliant problem. At this point, you might want to ask whether Tether really cares that much about this. I'll get into that later. It actually seems more like Tether is saying, well, if there's no EU, then there's no EU. So how do I get back to that? So there are new rules for so-called ARTs and EMTs. So EMTs are, for example, stable coins. You can read through that here at your leisure. So basically a one-to-one representation of the dollar price and so on without going into it any deeper. So MiCA stipulates that EMTs in the EU can only be publicly offered or allowed for trading on a crypto asset trading platform if the issuer of these METs is from 2021. And here there are two requirements. Funny enough, Tether meets these two requirements, and yet Tether says they haven't applied for approval for whatever reason. But Tether has now also stated that they still want to focus on Europe. So, new projects will likely be supported here that offer MiCA-compliant stablecoins, for example. EuroQ or USDQ. Those are stablecoins from the Dutch fintech company Contos Payments. However, there is still an alternative, and that is USDC, because they are MiCA compliant, at least to my knowledge. Still the only stablecoin as of today. I'll get to that in a moment, because Ripple will also be able to score points there. However, I also want to address why there's so much bullshit being talked about out there. And there are reports that make you think, hey guys, did you even do your research, or are you just spreading fake news and nonsense? So, it's just a side note. Now the question arises, it's not about doing anything illegal, but crypto was fundamentally created so that you can transfer your assets anonymously. It's good to curb scams, correct? But it shouldn't go so far that you become completely transparent. I've pulled out an alternative regarding what requirements might exist here, but that question remains open. To be clear, it's not about doing anything illegal here, but crypto was essentially created to say that you can transfer your assets anonymously. Of course, it's good to curb scams, absolutely right, but it shouldn't go so far that you become completely transparent again. I've pulled out an alternative regarding what requirements might exist here. That question remains open. So you should also do some research on your own. With Chain Bank, it seems that you can indeed decide for yourself, yeah, okay, all clear. I have my unhosted wallet, like for example, MetaMask, and then you can send your assets directly to the bank onto the card and pay with that. So basically unhosted payment, now solid proof audit, etc. Everything is there. I'm just wondering how the requirement works here regarding MiCA. You have to go through a KYC process, etc. I could imagine that up to a certain threshold, you might be able to use it like that. Anything above that, you have the requirement that you need to use KYC. By the way, the pre-sale for that is also online. And as I said, it's definitely an exciting opportunity. What I also find impressive is that this is logically supposed to come with Apple and Google Pay, etc. I just want to make it very clear at this point that we're talking about an early stage project. Pre-sale always carries the highest risk. So don't think that everyone is going to jump on this right away just because of MiCA and so on. No, so please do your own research, but I can definitely imagine that this could be an exciting alternative. To confuse things even more before we get to XRP and how Ripple's stablecoin can score points, let's talk about the topic of influencers. Yeah, there was something about those finfluencers who are supposed to be held back, but how is it actually, and why do I feel like there haven't been any new reports since 2022 about what the clear requirements are? So when does the promotion of a project start? When do you present something? So that's a big question, and that's exactly the problem here. So why should I look deeper into an article from 2022? You can also take a look here. This one is from 23, so basically very up to date, and it's exactly the same. Yeah, what's the deal with consumer protection advocates and crypto influencers, finfluencers? So if anyone out there knows, please write it in the comments. I'm really curious because I unfortunately don't know. And here's a quick note about this so-called bullshit that's going around. We have an article here that's pretty up to date. And if we scroll down, we see that major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance are delisting non-compliant stablecoins like USDT and USDC in Europe. And now let's talk about this topic of wallets, especially Ledger, because Ledger is based in France. Now we can ask ourselves the question, what would it look like if the EU came knocking on Ledger's door saying, hey guys, you're making hardware wallets, so how about doing KYC with all your customers? That way, we would know who owns which hardware wallet, and if KYC isn't completed, well, then we just block the wallet. I have no idea if that's feasible. Of course, there are discussions about this, but we also have this issue where you can store something in the cloud, and of course you have to agree to all of that first, and so on and so forth. But a lot of things are happening in the background right now. 2001, whether it's from exchanges or possibly from hardware wallet providers and so on, we don't know any of that. So what happens on January 1st? Suddenly you get a screen message asking you to go through KYC, and then a few people are left empty-handed. So I don't want to spread panic here. It's definitely conceivable. That's why, personally, I already use Bitbox a lot, aside from other reasons, because it's an open source tool and really focused on security. A little note here, not as many networks are supported, like for example, from Ledger. Ledger is quite big in that regard. All in all, I personally use, for example, I like using Bitbox. By the way, without advertising it, I have a link below. You can grab a bonus there, so a discount which gives you the chance to get a Bitbox at a lower price if you don't already use a hardware wallet. 2001, but that's enough advertising for now. So, as I said, it's a bonus that I'm passing on to the community. That's something to keep in mind. So, before we get to the coin tip, let's take a look at Ripple and how you can score points from this listing. So at the current time of this recording, nothing has happened yet. The listing isn't through, but David Schwartz has already explained that, yeah, folks, there could be a bit of FOMO happening, which could lead to the RLUSD suddenly shooting up to $1,000 because there's a scarcity. Now, I'll add right away, yeah, anyone can gamble on that. Personally, I wouldn't do it because if networks are overloaded and so on, I won't go into that further, but you can really get burned with this speculation because you probably won't be able to buy for $1. You might end up buying for 50.01, then the price drops again, and then you're left in the lurch. Now, I'll say right away, yeah, anyone can gamble on that. I personally wouldn't do it because if networks are overloaded and so on, I won't go into that further, but you can really get burned with this speculation because you probably won't be able to buy for $1. You might end up buying for 50.01, then the price drops again, and then you're left in the lurch. So I wouldn't get involved in that. However, if you take a look at the current chart, you can definitely see that, sure, this was around the announcement. You can see here, according to Fibonacci, first there was a rejection, then the announcement came, and of course there was a big candle going up, but then it got rejected and went down further, and now the value has broken through. That means for anyone who wants to gamble here, you could say that this could be the next relevant limit, where either there will be a rejection or it will go through. Now, I just want to point out that XRP has a big advantage because through these stablecoin transactions, at least from what I've gathered, XRP is also being burned repeatedly. So that means it's finally deflationary, which is the only good thing about Ripple's tokenomics, but that's just a side note. Definitely. I personally wouldn't get into this poker game, so I wouldn't jump into the market now if you haven't invested yet, because there are a lot of whales out there who have already bought in the past, so they're way ahead. Well, they may well be interested in realizing profits, especially at events like the listing, where everyone is now looking forward to it. So there could definitely be a dump, and anyone who thinks they have to jump in now because it could all be the retailers, well, you'll just end up paying the bill for the whales. So at this point, I can only keep saying, money doesn't disappear. It just belongs to someone else. But now let's get to the coin tip. And just to be clear, I'm not being paid for this. I even loaded my own portfolio, and I have a relatively large position in it. I don't want to sound biased, but it's 0-1 laps. So I personally still hold the position and believe in it. But I also believe that right now could be an exciting time to get in because everyone's eyes are mainly back on Bitcoin. What happened here was actually FUD. So there were accusations that 01 Labs is a scam and blah, blah, blah. Sonnenschein also cleared everything up. If you look at the other developments, so there was a clean bottom formation here, then it went up, and then we had the FUD. But this isn't investment advice. I'm just considering whether to buy a bit more of the position. But if you also look at the monthly value, when the altcoin season comes back, it's definitely conceivable that this hype could catch 01 Labs again, as you can see up here. So I was also in a pretty good profit for a while, and now it's gone down again. But you always have to work counter-cyclically, buy when everyone else is afraid. Now let's definitely get to the drawing for yesterday's giveaway. Yeah, a bit subdued on the clicks. Of course, no one wants to hear that the rally might be over. No, we definitely want FOMO, 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 but we also need to talk realistically about it. So, today I can only give you the tip to maybe watch this video again, and feel free to click up here because there are already some factors in there that could be interesting. Right now, with the announcement that the listing is happening today, for sure we're throwing everything into the raffle drum, giving it a good mix, and congratulations Michi, you left a thumbs up. Let's see what else happens. We can definitely only agree. So please create an account on BitMEX. By the way, this goes for everyone. If you're looking for a cool exchange to trade on and want a $25 voucher, well, check out the description. There's the link. Otherwise, please message me on Telegram, then you can win. And now we come to the new drawing. And here we have an original sealed envelope. Let's open it. I'll just jump in here and tell you how you can win. So just write a comment down here and share your opinion on what you think might be coming our way with MiCA, whether the European standard is completely lost now. Look into the camera, exactly, that makes sense. What am I looking at on the screen now? Yeah, or how it goes on from there, whether you see a risk regarding Ledger or not. Let's discuss that. Just write that in the comments. Otherwise, yeah, the giveaway is definitely worth checking out. There aren't that many bills, but 205. That means you can win 205 BitMEX tokens. Also, if you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It helps boost the algorithm, so I really appreciate it. And otherwise, we'll see each other in the next video. Until then, all the best, 21. And otherwise, we'll see each other in the next video. Until then, all the best in 21.